Morning Consult recently did a poll on Medicare for All, and the results are encouraging. But before I get to those results, I just want to remind you of what happened during the Democratic debates, where both nights the candidates were asked whether they would be willing to abolish private insurance for Medicare for All.
Who here would abolish their private health insurance in favor of a government-run plan? Just a show of hands, starting off with. Who here would abolish their private health insurance in favor of a government-run plan? Yeah. All right.
Now, even though you see Kamala Harris raising her hand, she later reneged on that and said that she misunderstood the question. So let's just be clear. So the only three who proudly raised their hands were de Blasio, Warren, and of course, Bernie Sanders.
I just want to be clear on Kamala Harris before we move on to the great news about Medicare for All. Be careful what you see from Kamala Harris. Now, I came into this with an open mind. You guys all saw it all throughout this process, okay? Kamala Harris actually has said a lot of things that are very progressive, so I was very excited by that. But now this is the second time where she publicly raises her hand and says, "You bet Medicare for All, I'm all in, I'm all in." And then as soon as the cameras are off, she goes to reporters and donors and goes, "I'm not kidding, I'm not in at all, okay?" So you're telling me someone as savvy as Kamala Harris, who eviscerated Joe Biden and had shirts made up before the debate about the tagline she used while she eviscerated Biden, that planned that meticulously, didn't know that earlier in the night before in the debates they asked that same exact question and wasn't prepared for it and misheard it? No way, there's a 0% chance. Not only that, she did it twice now. Okay, I'm for Medicare for All, even if it means getting rid of private insurance. Cameras are off, right? Okay, sucker progressive voters. Now, reporters, of course I don't mean it. Go tell the donors. I don't mean it at all. I'm not gonna do it, don't worry. So that's Kamala Harris so far. She wants to correct the record. We're happy to have it. But right now, that looks really bad. Now, she also miscalculated. She's correct that Medicare for All is really popular. That's why she keeps raising her hand in public, right? But we're gonna catch you, and on you caught Biden, okay, we're catching you. You made a mistake. You should have just stuck with your original instinct, political instinct, to stick with Medicare for All. Because it turns out we were right. It is incredibly popular. Listen.
All right, so Morning Consult just recently did a poll asking Americans of all political persuasions how they feel about doing away with private insurers. And it's interesting because when you talk about abolishing private insurers, people get scared because guess what? A lot of Americans mistake private insurers with medical providers, right? People like their doctors, they like the hospitals they're going to. Under Medicare for All, they would still be able to go see their doctors, still be able to go to those hospitals. It's just that they wouldn't have to deal with private insurers who are looking to make a profit off of this business scam that we have. Now, let's give you the results of the study. Or survey. Support among voters for Medicare for All falls to 46% from 53% when respondents are told the government-run healthcare system would diminish the role of private insurers, but rises back to 55% when voters learn that losing their private plans would still allow them to keep their preferred doctors and hospitals. And let me be clear that they're not focusing simply on Democrats here, they're focusing on all voters, regardless of which political affiliation they have. Independents are 14 points more likely to back the system when told losing their private plan would not mean losing their doctor. So 42% to 56%.
Okay, you know how they called Obama's tiny little mistake about how you can keep your doctor the lie of the year, I think the Associated Press called it. Now in reality, most people could keep their doctors, but some people got insurance that was even better, okay? But had to switch doctors even though they got more expansive coverage, right? Well, even with all of Trump's monstrous, ridiculous, absurd lies, what the media is doing here is actually the lie of the year. Because they're going around saying over thousands of times, both in print and on air, well, hey, how would you feel about Medicare for All if you find out that you're gonna lose your private insurance? That makes it sound like you're gonna have no insurance. No, you would have better insurance. And in fact, I asked Michael Bennett, who's opposed to Medicare for All, and I showed it to you guys right here on the Young Turks. I said, wait a minute, if you lose private insurance, you'd still be insured, right? He said, yes, you would. I said, in fact, your insurance would be better, right? And he said, yes, that the Medicare for All plan is, quote, the Cadillac package. He said it would be, quote, awesome. Now, the rest of the media, they never fill in that last half of the sentence. So they're doing a hatchet job. And look, if it's not on purpose, please educate yourselves. And if you're offended by that, I'm sorry, but you're supposed to be journalists. You don't lose your private insurance and have no insurance. You then have Medicare, actually a souped up Medicare. That is better insurance, more coverage. So you can then cry about, hey, how much does it cost? And that's a whole separate topic, which you're also misleading people about. But you cannot say or imply that they don't have insurance. And it turns out just like we predicted. If you tell people in a poll, but wait a minute, you still get to keep your doctor, your provider, they go, well, yeah, it's more popular, not less popular.
Yes.
Like if you just say Medicare for all, it's at 53%. If you say, but you don't get to keep your private insurance, but you get to keep your provider, it goes up to 55%. This whole mythology about, oh, people love their insurance. They love their private insurance. No, they don't. They like their doctors. They like their providers. They might like their hospitals. But it's not like, man, I love the paperwork in my insurance. Under no circumstances will I get better coverage. I don't want it. That's not a thing.
So what I found fascinating about this survey is, when they broke down the respondents based on which political party they're from, they focus on Democrats, I gave you the numbers, and independents gave you the numbers. But when it came to Republicans, they didn't move, they didn't change their mind, but it wasn't because they think that the plan is terrible, it's that they don't believe that Medicare for all would still allow them to see their providers, because the media did such a great job in taking that one tiny issue with Obama and turning it into like lie of the year. And so, you have Bernie Sanders making this argument, and he's abundantly clear on it. And then you have the Republicans who are like, no, we don't believe it. We don't believe it. We're going to lose private insurance. We're not going to be able to. We're not going to have access to the same providers.
No, but look, whether it's the Republicans or the corporate Democrats or the corporate media, they all literally get paid to mislead you. The corporate media has gigantic health insurance and drug company advertisers. Billions of dollars are on the line. And even the Democrats who are against Medicare for all, they almost all take money, corporate donations, checks. They cash those checks from health insurance companies and drug companies that make a ton of money off this sick, corrupt system. That is why they are purposely. Now, I often give people the benefit of the doubt and it frustrates the audience. Not on this one. No, you're being bribed. Let's call it what it is. It's the corruption, stupid. Nobody else would be going around going, hey, you lose your private insurance, full well knowing that you get better insurance.
Yes.
Nobody would not finish that sentence unless they're corrupt, okay? So look at the stunning numbers. Medicare for all and independents, like Anna showed you, 50%, that's already a great number, right? And after, by the way, note that after it has been battered in the press, almost no one in the press, it's not Fox News. Fox News hates it, drives down the numbers for the Republicans who loved it in the beginning when Medicare for all was first announced. Republicans were in favor of it. Then Fox News, oh, it's terrible, Ocasio-Cortez, socialism, Bernie Sanders. And they drove the numbers to about 25% for Republicans. But it's not just them. All of cable news and the New York Times and the Washington Post are all out there misleading people. Whether it's on purpose or not, I'll let you decide, okay? And they should speak to it. Hey, the ombudsmen at the New York Times and Washington Post, are you going to correct the 1,000 misleading articles that you guys put out there, scaring people into, oh, you're going to lose your private insurance? But when you look at the independents, 50% after it's been battered by all of the press is an amazing number. But it goes down to 42 when you say, oh, but you're going to lose your insurance. Even 42 is not that bad for people who think they're going to lose their insurance. And they're still like, I hate the system so much, yes. But when you say, oh, by the way, you get to keep your provider, 56% difference between 42 and 56 is everything. It's everything. You get 42%, you lose. At 56%, you win comfortably. Of course, you won't win because Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer won't even bring it up. Even if they controlled the Senate and the House, and you have a corporate Democrat win the presidency, it's never even going to be voted on. It doesn't matter how popular it is because they're also corrupt. But look, the media will not call it what it is because they're part of the same economic system. The reality is they've been bought, and that is why we pay twice as much as any other developed nation, and we have worse results than they do. And then they say, how can we afford to change it? No, how can we afford to keep this current system? Oh, right, a lot of those profits are coming back into their pockets. That's why they all advocate for it. Whether they know it or not, that is their real reason for purposely misleading the American people on this issue. Like what you see? Click the subscribe button below and don't forget to ring the bell to never miss another video from the Young Turks.